as you hold up the skies, Atlas rise! Dude. Woo! Yeah! This is Tim, and you are watching Daily Damage on Tabletop Terrors, and I just listened to the brand new Metallica song, Atlas Rise. Whew, doggy. Whoop, dude. Whew. All right. Get it together, Tim. You're on a live stream. I am going to do what I like to call the rundown. And the rundown is what I typically do while the stream is sharing around the internet. And it's me telling you some things that you should check out. One thing you should check out is on tabletopterrors.com. If you're planning on running some sort of Halloween game or even a spooky game in the future, there's an article by our very own Shotzi. She's a staff writer. I love saying that. I don't know, that's not a real term, but I can say it. It's a real term. It's not a real term that's applicable to Tabletop Terrors. But she's a writer who writes on tabletopterrors.com, and the article series that we came up with is called Doing Game Night Right. This particular version is the premiere edition, and it talks about spooky snacks, really easy stuff too, like atmospheric decorations. Really, really good article. Check it out on tabletopterrors.com. So that is the first thing. The second thing in the rundown that I want to mention is it's been Copper JACKALS fever around here. There have been plenty of people who have seen the Copper JACKALS games during BrigadeCon, but also they saw the character creation on our channel and multiple other things. It's really been a big focus. So I want to tell everybody that if you are interested in getting your copy of the Copper JACKALS, it's half off the cover price right now at absolutetabletop.com. So you can go and get your copy of the Copper JACKALS, and you can get it now for half off the cover price. So I think that about does it as far as the rundown. So I want to jump right in, and we're going to talk about making monsters more scary. I was tempted to not do this stream just so I could listen to that song my entire lunch. So we're going to talk about Atlas Rise in a second, but I'm seeing messages, bzz, 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 people are messaging me going, oh, I'm going to go listen now. So I think I probably should have posted a reminder to everybody to listen to the song. Let's actually go to the chat. Before I do anything else, I love to see what people have to say. Chris Wilhelm is here. Josh Glisson is here. Rob Coletta is here. Josh Glisson says, have not heard the newest song. Guess I know what I'm listening to on the way home. Dude, you can check it out on their YouTube channel, their official YouTube channel, or it's on Spotify right now. Chris Wilhelm says, I'm getting the print version with the Chapter Forge, and I'll talk about what he means regarding the Copper JACKALS. Justin Rio says S&M. Dude, S&M by Metallica is one of, if not the best recorded live album by any band. And I don't just mean that because I'm a Metallica fan, but the mix, the way the drum kit sounds, the clarity of the vocals, the crunch of the guitar. If you have the S&M DVD, you can actually play the whole concert with or without the symphony, and you can play the whole concert with or without the band. That's huge to me. I think that's super cool. In fact, I think that they would make a squillion bajillion bucks if they just released, here's just the orchestral tracks, and here's just the band, or some variation of there. Sean DeGaiso is here. Chris Wilhelm, the movie they did a few years ago was so good. Dude, it was so good. All of them. Some Kind of Monster, Through the Never was amazing. I'm also a big fan of all their, just all the concert DVDs they've released. I think they do a really good job with that. So, I will give you my initial first thought. Sorry, someone called me. I put it on Do Not Disturb. I don't know. Anyway, at first, when I heard the song, it seemed like, I don't know, I wasn't ready for exactly what I was hearing. But by the middle, I was like, dude, I'm so in. And by the end, I was singing the chorus with it. And I was like, yep, check. So, but asking me if I like a Metallica song is like asking a clever analogy that I could say right now, if they like clever analogies. Tyler Hurst is here. Josh Glisson, upscale into 4K. Through the Never is outstanding. I bet. Justin Rio, I have no idea what you're talking about as far as movies and such. Not actually a Metallica fan. But love making monsters scarier. And we will get into that. I'll do that actually right now. Yeah, Through the Never was the one I was thinking of, says Chris Wilhelm. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pop open. I think this is actually very, very apropos. I have a monster right here. I'm going to crack this bad boy open, and we're going to talk about making monsters more scary. Before I jump into that, though, I want to tell you that on the Point of Inspiration Facebook, they're also going to be doing sort of a Halloween-themed stream later. So watch out for Chris. He's going to jump on there and give tips on how to make your games more spooky. So check that out as well. All right. So, if I still have your attention, here's what I want to tell you about. And I made some notes. The first thing, this is tip 0. This is the thing you can never forget, but it's going to come into play especially right here when we talk about making games scarier. You have control over what the players imagine. Again, that sounds very basic, but as game masters, we forget how powerful this tool is at our disposal. DMing is telepathy. It's telepathy, and I'm not, hear me out. Whatever you mention, whatever you describe, whatever you tell me, I can't help but focus on it. Okay? Are you ready? Before you is a dagger. Its blade is smooth, brushed steel. Its pommel is a deep bronze. Written on the blade in red ink is the word traitor. What did you just imagine? You imagined a dagger. So, I didn't say how long the blade was. I didn't describe how intricate the hilt was or the pommel. But we all saw the word traitor. And while that stuff might have looked a little different, to each one of us, I put those details in your mind. Everyone saw, oh, okay. This is key to use this power. Using your powers of telepathy as a game master is key when you're using horror. And here's what I mean. So if that was tip 0, this would be tip 1. Tip 1, when you're making monsters more scary, is you need to show the ripples. You need to show the effects this monster has. So what the heck am I talking about? I don't just mean their lair and so on. If you're talking about, let's say there's a creature that's been terrorizing a village. Show sleep-deprived villagers. Make me feel the fact that they can't get an ounce of shut-eye. Show me someone nursing a wound that they're afraid to talk about. Show the ripples of this monster. People don't go out after dusk anymore. People don't go to a certain part of town, so a vendor has had to shut down. Certain families have left their homes abandoned. Taking these small details lend to a sense of suspense and terror. So focus on the effect that this creature has. Don't just make it the monster is scary. Show me what the monster's been doing, who is it affected, and make me care. That is the first step in, I think, any real good terrorizing, is make sure that the players care. This isn't just about jump scares and what's deadly or unnaturally ugly. There are a lot of monsters like that. But to make something scary, make me care about it first. Make me care about the people it's affecting first. I think that's why The Walking Dead held up so well for the first few seasons. Now, I'm a fan, so I don't mind, the direction the show took. Some people decided they didn't care for it, but one of the things you can't argue is that the show, at least the first few seasons, is about people first, and it has zombies in it. I think that that's what got it into the zeitgeist of society, is it wasn't a zombie show. It was a show about people, and their threat was zombies, but they made you care about the people. And so that would be my first thought. The ripples. What ripples is this monster causing? No matter what size or shape, what are the ripples? Let's go to the chat. Jake Norman is here, my man. Heliodoro, the Copper Jackal himself. Sean DeGeyser says, I had a monster rehab tea and lemonade during Brigade Con. I must say it was good. Here's to you. Here's to you, man. That's one of my favorites. Tastes like strawberry. Oh no, rehab tea and lemonade. I was thinking the pink one. The pink one tastes like strawberry Starburst. Josh Glisson, Have a soldier or town guard who is old and seen a lot, scared to death. Exactly. Show, there's a trope, and I think it's called beating up Worf. So on like TV tropes, if you wanted a guy to know he was a bad dude up front when he showed up on a Star Trek show, if he could beat up Worf, you're like, oh, okay, he's tough because he's tougher than Worf. Tyler Hurst says, I love the ripples idea. I feel like this is a key in any event for a story. A world will be affected by moving and shaking. This is just moving and shaking on a smaller scale. Exactly. If you show me the residue that this monster has left behind, I am going to fear it. And we'll get into this later, but your job's going to be easier because the buildup will have much more weight and frames of reference. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Sean DeGazzo says, it is always show, don't tell. You have to show the difference. Say between horrified versus scared. Totally agree. Jacob Norman. The new chapter head of Onslaught. Recognize. Hey, we don't know who's alive on that murder arc. You hope. Chris Wilhelm, I will actually be discussing monster hunting in the Point of Inspiration Live today. So this is very perfect. This is going to go right in there. So check that out later today. Josh Glisson. It also helps to know your players and what scares them IRL. Yes, that is also another good one. Though that that actually brings up a point. I ran a game once, and I wouldn't say I regret it, but I also am not proud of it. I ran a game once where I knew for a fact that a couple of the players had real-life fears. So one of them had a fear of birds, one of them had a fear of clowns, and so I had their players face that, and that actually was kind of traumatizing for them. So make sure they know what they're in for, because that's like you said, IRL, some people are actually really afraid of those things and it's traumatizing. Some people get petrified when they see spiders. So if you have them fight a spider, it's a real deal. So just make sure your players are on the level, is all I'm saying. Let's see here. Josh Glisson says, haha, that's what I'm saying. All right, so that's tip one. Tip two, I think this is important. Have the monster show up and leave if possible. I call this the mini reveal. So, this is tough. This is very difficult. It's easier to do narratively and expect that the players might catch the monster, expect that, this is basically where you might have to do a full reveal. But revealing the creature and choosing when to show it is a big point in terror. So you're going to see this. One of the most classic references for this is the film Alien, where we know that there's a deadly alien on board, but we don't see it very often. And that makes things more terrifying because you know that it's present. So, again, players might say, well, I run out there and I use this ability and I chase it, and and you have to be ready for that stuff because you want to make it fair. You don't want to just hand wave it like, the monster's so fast that it's gone. But if you really, really want to make it so that they can't catch it, give your villains Misty Step. Just point blank. Make that an ability they have, and guess what? They're gone, and they can't be caught. But making sure that the monster is present and still affecting things, but not showing it too often. So these mini reveals, something could be a big use of shadow, obviously silhouette, sound, and the effects that it has, like you hear a crunching on the roof as it slowly moves atop, or you hear something below, using that sort of thing, and then make it go away. They think they're going to have a fight right now, right? But you make it so that the monster is actually not going to fight them. In fact, they just happen to be around while it's around. If you want to make it even more terrifying, you make it so that the monster then, they hear screams across the way, and by the time they arrive, there's a victim, or someone has been taken, a child has been taken. That is this kind of mini reveal where it's like, so I think make the monster present, but I would almost plan it as like a pillar in my middle encounter. So as I'm going through, I'm planning this big monster fight at the end. That's what I'm thinking. The middle encounter is going to be this mini reveal where the monster shows up and has an effect on the environment, and something else happens. So something else to keep the players busy, so that there's sort of like, we got to choose. Do we chase the monster or do we deal with what's going on? As if, for instance, you could have some sort of fire breakout. Like, the way I would do this is probably have some would-be monster hunters a distraught father trying to find his daughter is kind of tracking the monster, but he's not very good at it, and he's maybe a little drunk, a lick of courage, and so he sets a fire on accident. So now the tavern's on fire. So the heroes have to decide, do we chase the monster to its lair, or do we save the people from the tavern? They might choose chase the monster, but that's a huge character choice. So that's probably what I do, this kind of mini reveal in the middle. And this would be probably tip 3, talking about the reveal itself. The reveal itself is tip 1, don't call the monster what it is. I think that can lend a level of mystery and a level of, I think, horror if you do it right. Just describe the most twisted, terrible features of the monster. And in fact, you can even say, if the players are like, can I roll to see what this monster is? You might allow that. I maybe would say, in this instance, I probably wouldn't give them a name unless it was a really common monster. And I would probably try to use something that I created or reskinned so that they wouldn't have had experience with it. The terror of the unknown is part of just why we're afraid in general. And so I'd probably reskin something using just the stats. And then when I described it, I wouldn't say, a werewolf stands before you, roll initiative. There's no tension there. But if I'm saying, the beast's maw is unnaturally wide and twisted and what could be confused for a grin. Countless teeth barely fit inside its head. Saliva drips from its canines. Its long snout roars. Its mottled fur on its bipedal frame and well-muscled shape is covered in gore and bits of flesh and dried carnage. The monster's limbs ripple as it descends to all fours, taking the shape of an enormous lupine creature. Its claws end in yellow tips, and they fly at you as it lurches. Roll initiative. Now, I just described a werewolf, right, essentially. But I did it in a way that hopefully builds tension as I'm revealing different pieces. This goes back to kind of that first thing, that telepathy tip, where you don't know. You don't get the full reveal because you're using your mind's eye. So whatever I tell you, you're imagining. And that is really to our advantage here. So that's what I would say. Do a mini reveal, and then the next tip would be, when you do reveal it, make sure that you have a couple of cool descriptions ready for some awful things as far as how it looks, how it smells, engage various senses, so that you can really slowly let them get the full picture of this thing, and hopefully it's more terrifying. Let us go to the chat. So, Justin Rio, that's why I used spiders in my game. Got my wife really creeped out. Not phobic, though. Yeah, and I think that's the difference. If people are like, oh, I don't like spiders. I mean, a lot of people don't like spiders, but there are some people who are genuinely phobic where they'd be like, hey, that's not cool. Like, Chris Wilhelm actually has a really good process for doing session zeros in his campaigns, and I think one of the things he mentions is there any subject matter you're uncomfortable with? Like, is there anything that would be considered crossing a line for you? And let's make sure we get that out of the way now. So if one of the things is, yeah, like, listen, I hate to be a bummer, but I'm really terrified of snakes, like really genuinely terrified of snakes, so if you could just not put them in the game. It's like, okay, we can have that social contract. Josh, listen, I play with family and enjoy traumatizing them. Hey, listen, man, no complaints here. I do the same. In fact, you're going to see a video later this week or early next by Tabletop Terrors. We're going to start a home campaign with my mom and my brothers, and we actually started we called it a session -1, where it was basically us kind of deciding what the campaign was going to be, and it's going to be set in Dragon. So we're pretty stoked about it. Josh, listen, Salem's Lot does a good job of creeping you out. Exactly. It's that slow burn. It's that reveal. It's the tension. You know, it's mounting and boiling rather than just like, hey, here you go. It's scary. Tyler Hurst says, oh man, Alien is intense. Alien Isolation is a spooky game for this reason specifically. Exactly. I feel like that's what sets the mood for the Corruptor and the Provokers, is that he was there and gone so many times he became a real problem, a horror, just making him frightening and menacing. So let's talk about Alien Isolation. If you play a scary video game, take exact scenes and rip them off. Just say, okay, what made this scene scary? The doors were closing and the creature was chasing me. There you go, right there. Put some rough mechanics on it and run with it. And I think that can be a good way, is that take scary media. This is like bonus tip. Take scary media and just lift the things that you say, oh, that was really tense. Why was it tense? What were the scene elements? What was happening? Boom, drop it into the game. You're golden. Josh Glisson says, a dead or missing party of other adventurers. That's a great plot hook. In fact, there was an adventure I ran once where the party returned to the Adventurers Guild and all was well, and it was kind of like happy, like defeated the bad guy, and that's how I introduced the new villain, was the other adventuring party. They're kind of like they're contemporaries, like their Mozart-Salieri relationship, where they were kind of tit for tat. They were murdered, and it was kind of like, whoa, that got real. Like, what, they died? It's like, yeah, there's this sort of big bad, medium bad, like this kind of boss, yeah, captured him and killed him, and it's like, whoa, that sort of ratcheted things up a bit. Spencer Shields is here. Shields of War John Getz is here. What's going on? So, I would say the final tip, and this is a big one, I think, is how do you actually terrorize your players once the combat starts? I think that it's easy to control the tone of the game during scenes. It's easy to control the tone of the game as you go through, you know, role-playing scenarios, and you can describe the scene. But how do you, once you reveal the werewolf, once it's out in the open, they're fighting it, how does it stop from just turning into like, okay, run me through the turn mill, who's going to do the multi-attack next? Like, let's kill this thing. And my notes basically just say, you got to reinstate. You got to keep reminding them why this thing is scary. You got to go back to the original tips and pull that stuff in. And that's what I was talking about before. When you bring the ripples back in. So, let's say the town blacksmith is missing. Okay? You are from way in the beginning. And we talk about how, hey, he's an old guy. He never misses work. What's going on? And you find him there. And you do it. Don't just reveal that when you describe the first scene. Don't just make it like, okay, guys, here goes the scary monster description, and the blacksmith's dead in the corner, and also there go the missing weapons, and there's a child who's still alive, over to cage, roll initiative. Let those things be revealed through combat. So I would save a couple of things from before. Some of the ripples make ripple sequels. What is the sequel to that ripple? So if the blacksmith is missing, they find him, but not like, hey, yeah, you see him. Make it during a turn. You strike the beast in the torso. And while your weapon does draw blood, the wound begins to immediately seal up. Your weapons aren't silver. And as you tumble and move out of the way, as the beast swipes at you, you're face to face with an older gentleman. Lifeless eyes, short cropped hair, and a tattoo just above his collar. This must be the missing blacksmith. Boom! Bring that back, pull that weight in. Same thing. You continue, and maybe I have this kind of trigger. The monster's at half hit points. I'm going to go, all right, time to bring in the real Tenenbaum. Boing. You hear faint whimpers coming from the other room. What? Just up the ante. There's a child still alive in the other room, and the monster tries to leave the combat to go get the child. That's terrifying. There's a threat there. You have to keep the threat level up, and that's how I think most horror games flop by the time they get to the encounter, because it's tough to keep the tension ratcheted up in the encounter. And that's the way to do it. What you can also do is make sure you pay attention to what upset the players the most, what really rang out to them, what role-playing moments did the players have when you were causing those ripples. Were they oh man, what resonated? What did they say? Oh, I take a moment and I remember this from my past, or, all these different things. And then pull it in and bring those things back up, because you know that it resonated with them. You know that it's something that was important to them. You can also give them kind of minor closure and stuff like that. But I think that that's important. But I think that if you follow those basic tips, those basic hacks, whatever you want to call them, your encounters, your monsters can be more scary. So again, remember, one, that you're telepathic as a dungeon master. You could put into their minds whatever you think. Remember that, secondly, you can show the ripples. Where do the ripples, like, what has this monster caused? What kind of damage and collateral damage? And focus on that, because then it brings emotional weight. Do a miniature reveal with another challenge. So the monster appears on the roof, but the tavern's on fire because of the drunken monster hunter, or, whatever. So that it's like, they hear it, they see a silhouette, they see a shadow, the monster's present, but not, in the exact moment. And then a full reveal. And when you do that full reveal, make sure you describe it in bits and pieces and really let it be the reveal method, where you terrorize them with the yellowing fangs and you go through the process of the description. And then finally, pull from all of those other things throughout the combat, making sure that you can keep the tension high. Like I said, one of the things I would do is probably have a pillar for after the first couple rounds, boom, and then something big like a child in the other room who they have to save about mid-half points of the monster, so that it's like, okay, this just, in the boss fight, when the meter turns red or they turn red and they start flashing, this is what happens. About at that point too, I might even make the monster hit a little harder or something to really ratchet things up. But yeah, I think that about does it. Now let us go back to the chat. Josh Glisten says, I think it was Fear that did a jump scare vision followed by a player getting hit in the face with something. Double jump. Oh, dude, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think it was Fear. It was either... Yeah, I think it was Fear. I think they did something like that in Dead Space, too. Josh Glisten. Slaughter, a favorite NPC. This is actually a really good point. Now, I'd do it. But you gotta be careful, because like I said, you don't want these effects to be, you don't want to pull a Simpsons where everything's back to normal the next session either. So you gotta, if you really want to bring weight to this, make it so that the players didn't get there in time. And so the final victim that it's dragged back to its lair is an NPC that they know and love. And you can even play, if you want to be a little softy on them, Happy Halloween, the NPCs appears dead, and then it's the old, he hobbles out later and he's still alive, or she. Or you can have it to where, depending on how grimdark you want to get with it, the final victim is an NPC that you've been helping or that you know, or etc., and their life is extinguished before the player's eyes. That's traumatizing, So again, you also want to decide your terror level going in, but something I didn't mention that is probably important to mention, I mentioned it with the phobias, but make sure your players are in for this. Don't just surprise them with a scary game. You can put scary elements into the game, but if it's a 180-degree turn from what your campaign was before, you might be upset when they respond with confusion or being upset. Meaning, if the genre you're playing right now, like if I'm playing in Stratmere in Chris Wilhelm's homebrew world, and I'm playing like kind of a mystery, bank heist, Western kind of thing, and then all of a sudden, it's people getting murdered and it's monsters and all this stuff, that could be good, but I have to make sure that I've cued the players enough that it's seamless. Or, if this is just a separate Halloween one-shot, you should be good. But make sure your players are going to enjoy this, is really what I'm saying. Sean Getz says, save the beer! He's talking about the Burning Tavern. I'm sure that's what he's talking about. Josh Glisten says, oddly, if you introduce a friendly dog, then kill it, it brings nearly instant fear and sadness. Yeah, man, that's what I'm saying. That's like... Yeah, that's what I mean. There's some tricks you can pull. It's like, if you basically allow the monster, I think that pulls back into the ripples. If you allow the monster to go back to the ripple thing, if you allow the monster to ripple something that they love, it's going to be a bigger ripple. So I would also keep those to 1 or 2, because then it's like, man, this monster's killing everybody we love. It can get a little heavy-handed. Stephen Back is here. What's up, Skinny? Hey, your 3 and my 3 p.m. are different. I thought I made it for 3:15. I could have swore I made it for 3:15 because I wanted to listen to the Metallica song. Unless you're serious and you really are in a different time zone. But I probably should have been more clear. I made the stream for 3:15 because I wanted to be able to listen to the new Metallica song, Atlas Rise, first, and then come into the stream and give you my first impressions of it. I also wanted to give you all a chance to listen as well. Josh Glisson says, Attack on Titan. Titans are shown as bad when the main characters can't save his mom and she's... Oh, spoiler alert. I'm sorry. Oh, man. Dude, you got to mark those. I read them out loud. Sorry, if you haven't seen Attack on Titan, you can blame Josh Glisson. Email all your complaints to joshisboss@tabletopterrors.com. But yes, good point. Jake Norman, send the players into the town or village they've been using as a resting place periodically, a town they've come to know the NPCs, and have them fight off a monster invasion. When the last monster falls, they discover that the real monster has created an illusion or hallucinations, causing them to slaughter the townsfolk. That is awesome. That is awesome. I'm going to give you a yes and here, Jake. First of all, I'm not going to say what. That was one of the most probably gut-wrenching moments for me in a very popular comic. This happens in a very popular comic. So I can promise you that it works. And the players will just be like, the issue becomes you have to make sure that the hallucination is high enough. You have to make sure that, because if someone rolls and realizes it in the middle, or you have to give them a chance. Because I would be ticked off as a player if I'm, let's even say I'm an illusionist or I'm someone with a super high perception and I had no way of knowing that. So make sure it's really high level, so that it works mechanically. Because if someone gets a roll that would blow the doors off it, you kind of got to roll with that too, and then what's your encounter? But to me, the way to make that really hit home without the players feeling like you pulled the rug out from under them, put it over their face, and hit them in the face with a hockey stick, have it happen somewhere else first. Have that happen on a smaller scale first. And it can be a cutscene, or it can be when they first deal with the villain, and have it happen like one character to one character. Okay? So have it just from 1 to 1, like, oh wow, this person used an illusion and he thought he was killing a monster. Then later, when you go back, you show the same villain on a grander scale. I think it can work, but you have to be really careful with how you execute it. Your players will be the wrong kind of mad. Michael Barker is here. Spencer Shields says, one of my best gaming moments was a situation where the party didn't make it in time and was traumatic enough to cause the characters to go their separate ways. It ended the campaign, but in the best way possible. We eventually picked up those characters back, but they never got over what happened. I remember how moved and traumatized the players were as well. It was such an amazing moment for us, and even though it wasn't a happy ending, we still talk about it today. Exactly, and that actually shows, that's a very, very good point. If the players fail, it sometimes is a more lasting emotion than if they succeed. Most of the time it is, actually. So that's actually a really good point. Stephen Back, yeah, time zone got me. Not the 15. Haha, Mondays. Gotcha, Stephen. Michael Barker says, I missed it. What do you think of the new song? All right, here's what I think of the new song. I think it's that new hotness. It was jarring at first. Like the intro kicks in and I was like, what's happening? What's happening? I felt like I was in a dryer getting bounced around. And I was like, it's good, but I don't understand. And then that first pre-chorus, I was just like, yup. And then the first chorus, I was kind of like, oh, dude, yeah, okay, I'm kind of getting it. By the middle of the song, that like crazy melodic like guitar harmony part, I was like, And then by the end, I was singing the chorus, and I was just like, yes! And I was actually, I think I was like a minute late to the stream because I listened to the song for as long as I could before I had to start the stream. So I loved it. I thought, dude, that's 3 hits for me in a row. So I loved it. I was floored by the new Metallica song, Atlas Rise. Absolutely loved it. Michael Barker says, the encounter can be trying to escape the hallucination while not being sure what's real. That's a great way to do it too. And again, Jake, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't do it, but be careful that in a game like D&D, the players can make 1 roll or 2 rolls and figure it out. And then you're in trouble. Or if you do dupe them, they might feel the wrong kind of duped. Like, wouldn't we have known X, or wouldn't we have realized Y? Or so just foreshadow it somewhere else. That would be my main tip. But I think that would be really, really good. And then Jake said, oh yeah, definitely need the mechanics to back it up. A very early 1-to-1 setup with a large scale payoff. That's probably how I would do it. And I think in that case, that Game of Thrones style where you show it small and then it comes back and it's like, oh, we remember this. In fact, a way you can do it is that there's a certain, I don't know, we'll call it like a writer's calling card. Like, it's not literally a calling card, but when this event happens, when he, makes the players hallucinate, you can make it so that when they're done, their nose bleeds or something like that, or something, you know what I mean? And then later on, you can have it to where it's like the party is fine. They're, they haven't been hit, or maybe they've taken a little damage. You can say, and this is as you're about to reveal it. You say, even though the combat is over, you feel some fluid mounting, and you go to wipe your nose, and there's blood. And as you look across to Torlik, his nose is bleeding. And then you realize that Litta's the halfling rogue. No, that Litta, that was for Barker, her nose is bleeding also. And then you see the truth. And then you kind of narrate it, and they're like, oh, our noses are bleeding! Our noses are bleeding! So I would hang a lantern on the calling card early so that they have that aha moment, because let me tell you what would be crippling as a game master is if you went through all that and then they're like, wait, what happened? Because if you have to explain it and the aha moment isn't there, I would be super bummed. I'd be like, come on guys, remember the guy did it 2 sessions ago, remember? So I would specifically hang a calling card on there so that it could happen and they'd be like, Josh Glisson, gonna gobble up the new album. Think it's November 18th. Yeah, I think it's November 18th too. It's actually the end of my anniversary weekend, and I was telling my wife, I was like, listen, my only present that I want is just let me listen to that album. Wherever we're driving, just let me listen to that album. Would that be cool? Michael Barker says, yeah, man, they carry you through a few different things in that song. What the song might be, and then they blow your face off with what the song really is. Exactly, dude. It's like this. Face melted off, and just putting it back on, going, do it again. Stephen Back. Well, my players killed the special child they were supposed to be rescuing last week because he, in a controlled state, attacked them. Most of them were only mildly annoyed. They are not that emotionally. So that's kind of yeah, you got to be careful. You got to know your players. So if you expect one outcome, and then, like you said, he's the special child, and you don't want to put plot armor on him or her. So, yeah. Jacob Norman, I like the nosebleed, or a con save for headache, exhaustion. Yeah, something so that they'll absolutely know later, like, oh no. Barker says, haha, Litta for the win. So that's it. Now what I want to know is, how do you make your monsters more scary? How do you make your combats and your adventures and so on more spooky, more terrifying? Join a Point of Inspiration in just a little while from their Facebook page. I think it's going to be around 4 p.m. Eastern or later. Chris Wilhelm from Drop Dice and a Point of Inspiration is going to go through some steps as well, so join them. But if you are watching this on Facebook, put your comments below. I always read them. James always reads them below here. But if you're seeing this on YouTube, comment below. How do you make your encounters more terrifying? And what did we miss? What do you like? What do you not like about these tips? Tell us, because what we learned about the comments is there are a lot of really smart people that know more than I do. and it's fun to hear their thoughts, and it helps me learn. So be sure to read the comments. But anyway, thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm going to go and sneak in a couple more listens of Atlas Rise by Metallica. We love you, and until next time, may your dice roll.